Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and apologies for the delay in proceedings this evening. A couple of technical issues, but it is round 4 of the Alfa Romeo GTA Championship, and we are here at Brands Hatch in a new car this evening, the final of the 4 cars that we are debuting for the running this year, and it is the 147 GTA, our first front-wheel drive car for this year, so it'll be interesting to see how the drivers adapt to that at this very wintry Brands Hatch circuit. As I mentioned, a couple of technical issues meant that we are quite late joining the session, so apologies for that. We've got just about 2 minutes to go, so I believe this is all that she wrote for qualifying at the moment, unless we have some absolutely flying laps coming in at the very last second. Doesn't look like that's going to be the case though, unfortunately, as we see very little improvement going on through the session at the moment. It is Colin Knief who leads the running at the moment. His best lap at 1:34.3. He did actually just set that on his previous lap. He's currently on an out lap by the looks of things, so it might be getting ready for a bit of improvement. Still maybe a lap or two left in there. Probably just a lap left in there by now for some drivers. So let's see what they can do in terms of improvement. In fact, Andrew Whitehead currently running P2 in the ring. I know obviously the timing tower says something a little bit different there. Currently running P2 in the standings, as we see Colin Knief coming to a stop there, is actually on for a bit of an improvement at the moment and will be able to set another lap by the looks of things. He's currently running P2 with a 1:34.6, so about 3/10 off Colin Knief up in front. I was actually watching the live timings as I was trying to get into the session. You see a bit of an error there for Rosie Hodson. I was following along as I was trying to get into the session, and it looks like a 3/10 gap, kind of staying broadly the same between Andrew and Colin. If Andrew had set this lap a little bit earlier, he would have been on pole for quite a bit of this session, but unfortunately for him, Colin just about able to improve his time towards the end of the running there. But there's, as you can see here, quite a close battle going on in the midfield. We have John Cole leading that midfield running then in third position there at 1:35.1, followed very closely by George Brooke Battersby, who is for some reason not on my timing system here, about 200th of a second apart there. So very close together in the midfield, which is something that we like to see, and it will be a bit of a challenge for some of the drivers this car. Obviously Brands Hatch, a very high speed circuit, not very typical of a British circuit actually. It's about as narrow as we see most British circuits getting, but quite a lot of high speed corners, obviously some twisties in there as well, but this front wheel drive chassis may end up struggling with that, so it'll be interesting to see how the drivers kind of adapt to that and how the tyres behave throughout the race. Everyone in this qualifying session running the soft compound tyre there. I was about to say, apart from someone, that is myself running medium tyre on my camera car there, obviously not needing to go for lap times in that car, but with about 20 seconds to go in qualifying now, it is still Colin Knief who leads with a 1:34.3. It doesn't look like Andrew White's going to be able to improve as he heads through. Unfortunately, I don't believe he is on my system yet. Who he is actually, he's currently running P5 according to my system, but it is not looking great so far for him. A 29.2 in that previous sector there. That's not enough, unfortunately, for him to catch up to Colin Knief. Let's see what he does as he heads down the big drop up into sector 2 now, the highest speed part of this Brands Hatch circuit now. As we come towards the fast right-hander, you've got to be really quite brave through here. It is a bit of a favourite overtaking spot we've seen throughout some of the touring car running over the past few months, including the endurance event as well. It is a bit of a favourite overtaking spot, so that'll be one to watch for in the double header coming up. But Willing's list was actually improved in Sector 1 on his previous lap. He's now getting ready to set another lap. I think he does have, I think a few drivers have just about made it through to set another lap. But there's a big amount of oversteer for Andrew Whitehead there, the back end getting away. So it's good to know, actually. I haven't seen this 147 running yet, but it looks like it can be quite a playful little car. I do like a front wheel drive chassis with a bit of play in it. Probably why I like my Mito so much. A little bit unbalanced through some of the bends. But yes, it'll be one to watch out for the drivers then. Quite a short, narrow little car, this thing, so it'll be interesting to see how it behaves for some of the other drivers as well, running Colin's setup, I believe. Colin is actually out there at the moment and is looking to potentially improve. Purple in Sector 2 now. Can he build that gap between him and Andrew even more as he comes towards the very end of qualifying now? It's only Sector 3 to go. The final 2 corners, pretty much, it's one big corner, really. As we come across the line in just a few moments time, we'll see if he can improve that time even more. His previous lap, 1:34.3, that's what he wants to improve on, and he does improve, a 1:34 flat. Another 3/10 of a second found there for Colin Knief. So he's just securing that pole position even more. He didn't need to, but he's just, I imagine, flexing his muscles a little bit out on track there, looking like he's going to be quite racy in tonight's running then, and I'm looking forward to seeing some of that, as I'm sure you are. So we will bring an end to this rather short look at qualifying for this evening and get prepared for the race coming up in just a few moments' time. So I will catch you in just a second, ready for race 1 this evening. And a good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the racing action here at Brands Hatch for round 4 of the Alfa Romeo GTA Championship. And we are here at Brands Hatch, as I've just mentioned, and on the grid, lining up with Colin Knief on pole position, Andrew Wyatt in P2, John Cole P3, Will Inglis P4, Mike Hilton P5, Mr. Will Harper P6, Barry Clayton P7, and George Brooke Battersby P8. We've got just over 30 seconds until lights out, and it is going to be an exciting one, that is for sure, on what looks to be a cold, wintry day here at Brands Hatch, although I can tell you the track temperature is actually about 37 degrees. We are racing a new car, the final of the 4 cars for the GTA Championship this year, and let's see how these drivers navigate Turn 1 in a new machine. Obviously they've been getting plenty of practice in, and it is Colin Knief who is the favourite here, it must be said, about 6 tenths clear of everyone else in qualifying. Just towards the end there, putting in an absolutely flying lap through Sector 2 and Sector 3 to take the lead, but that doesn't matter for now. We have the revs rising, 6 red lights on the gantry, and we are away. A big amount of wheel smoke for Colin Knief's car there. Looks like Andrew Wyatt might have got a slightly better launch there, but Colin Knief has absolutely nailed the gear shifts and just about breaks away, heading through into Pilgrim's Rise in the lead for the time being, as it looks like there's a bit of squabbling going on between John Cole and Will Inglis. Will Inglis looking like he's going to go slightly later on the brakes there, up into Druids. They're bashing wheels together as they go side by side, and it's now on to the Cooper straight with Colin Knief still in the lead out in front there. A bit of a wheel lock up from Mr. Will Inglis there, but still able to stay in front of John Cole behind there, as is battling throughout the field as well. We've got some very close action here as we head up through Surtees now, as it looks like Andrew Harvey in the Gulf livery inspired 147 GTA is trying to get right on the rear bumper of George Brooke Battersby down in P7 here. There's in fact a slipstream train forming as we head down the Pilgrim's Drop now, of all the drivers trying to get as much speed up as possible before we head into Hawthorne now. Some drivers running with the lights on needed on this, I imagine, quite dull winter's day, as we have a car popping in and out of the background there. That's an interesting tactic. I'm not sure how long that will work though, as we see Matt Daly wasn't able to qualify by the looks of things, now climbing his way through the order up into P10 now, as we see George Brooke Battersby finally getting back past Mike Hilton now for P6 as we get ready to head down Clearways. And it looks like a little bit of rear end rotation on Will Harper's car that we saw on Andrew Whitehead. His final attempt in qualifying somewhat thwarted by a bit of oversteer there that kind of snapped up on him, as we see too wide heading round the Clark curve there, but unfortunately for Mr. Will Harper, went too wide and onto the gravel. Now he drops right back down the order, promoting George Brooke Battersby up into P5. Meanwhile, Colin Knief has been absolutely romping away, about 1.1 seconds clear of Andrew Whitehead now. Very little challenge from him so far at the second part of the last lap. Obviously purple in all those sectors, staying out in front of everyone. Rosie Hodson up into P11, getting back past Jack Hodson there. Those two look like they could be battling it out through the rest of this race. Came quite close together in qualifying, if my memory serves me correctly. Alan Matthews as well, getting past Matt Daly. Matt Daly up into P9. Alan Matthews up into P8 though, but Matt Daly is fighting back as we head down the Cooper straight up into Surtees. Now he has the inside line under braking. Very nicely executed move there for Matt Daly as we get ready to head down the Pilgrim's Drop. Now it might be Alan Matthews' opportunity to fight back as we go back into the slipstream train there, which has benefited so many drivers heading up into the Hawthorne bend there. As they go side by side, Alan Matthews looking like he gets a little bit of a better run onto the drop there, and is who's going to be braver under braking. We can't quite find out yet. Matt Daly has the inside line, able to squeeze Alan Matthews out just that little bit, and is in the lead for the moment, but this battle looks like it could be carrying on for quite a while. In fact, yeah, Alan Matthews is right on the rear bumper of Matt Daly's car now as we get ready to head into Sector 3, the final part of this lap, down Clearways, through Hawthorne and down Clearways now, as we have Alan Matthews still in the slipstream of Matt Daly as we get ready to head into the final long sweeping right-hander now. Looks like a little bit of contact between the two as Alan Matthews tries to find a way past. I'm not sure if that's contact or just the car bumping about a bit on the bumps. That's very low riding these 147 GTAs, a proper racing bred chassis by the looks of things. It's all gone wrong for Will Inglis there. Looks like he went a little bit wide at Clark Curve by the looks of things for whatever reason, and drops back down to P9 under pressure from Barry Clayton now. But all the action in this race so far does seem to be in this midfield, and Alan Matthews and Matt Daly are certainly providing his head into Druids now. Matt Daly taking the inside line, taking a bit of a defensive line there, as does Alan Matthews actually, because Will Inglis was looking to potentially do a bit of a swap around maybe. Now Alan Matthews focuses his effort on keeping Will Inglis behind by the looks of things. That will allow Matt Daly to break away from it, and there's a big amount of oversteer on Alan Matthews' car there. He's off a lot of speed, scrubbed off a lot of speed there as we head down onto the Cooper straight now, up into Surtees. He still has the inside line there, might be able to squeeze Willing Bliss just that little bit there, riding over the curb, and does so indeed. I think there might have been contact between the two cars there, and yes, there was, according to the timing system there. Wasn't a major bit of collision though, so they should be able to carry on, no issue at all. But it is Willing Bliss who's dropped back now behind Barry Clayton, and that has given Adam Matthews a bit of breathing room. But Willing Bliss is going to fight back towards Barry Clayton, going down the inside on the braking there. Beautiful move from Willing Bliss to take P9 back. He is on a bit of a recovery charge, I can imagine now. These 147 GTAs looking absolutely fantastic, it must be said. The two-door 147 being my absolute favourite of so many of the two-door, or three-door I should say, Alphas just look absolutely stunning. But I'll tell you what doesn't look absolutely stunning, it is Andrew Harvey dropping back there. Looks like it went a little bit wide there, still carrying on a little bit wide, not sure if he's carrying a bit of damage, but he is now down into P10 and will be focusing on recovering his whatever position he can in this race with the 20 minutes remaining that we have now. But all that battling has now kind of died down ever so slightly. A couple of seconds gap between each of these cars now, as the battling can't obviously carry on that intensely for so long. But it does further down the order between Rosie Hodson and Paul Millman in the AM running, as Paul Millman takes a little bit of a tighter line through the first corner there, and Rosie Hodson goes quite wide there, looking like she maybe didn't scrabble off enough speed heading into turn 1 and has to run over the gravel. Drops back down now, Mr. Will Harper up into P12. As a result, John Baker P13, Steve Knight P14. That has cost Rosie Hodson pretty harshly, it must be said, actually, as we see Andrew Harvey trying to potentially find a way past Barry Clayton. Though we know Andrew Harvey certainly has a fair bit of pace underneath him as he goes round the outside through Surtees now, gets a better run towards the Pilgrims drop, and is now side by side with Barry Clayton as these two run down the fastest part of the circuit, the highest speeds on the circuit. Now I can tell you, in fact, the fastest drivers at the moment are hitting the upper ends of 122 miles an hour. Looks like Andrew Harvey's car set up a bit more for downforce, a bit more for handling, so about 120 miles an hour for him as he overtakes Barry Clayton there into Hawthorne. Yes, that is Hawthorne. Ignore me there, I got my track a little bit mixed up earlier on. I'm trying for the first time this evening, I don't know if you can tell, I keep dropping corner names in I'm trying for the first time, no track drag at all. I'm seeing how I go, and so far it seems to be going alright, I think, as we see Colin Cleave setting the fastest lap of the race so far, 135.1. That would have been an impressive qualifying pace for some of these drivers in qualifying just a few minutes ago, and that is certainly an impressive time for Colin there. As we see trading positions between John Cole and Andrew Whitehead. All of a sudden I didn't quite notice that happening, but there's a battle going on for P2. We see John Cole overtaking Andrew Whitehead as we head through turn 1 there. Now has taken the second spot on the podium away from Andrew, looking like he's running a livery that's a little bit more reminiscent of the 2022 Alfa Romeo C42 F1 car, with the classical font along the side and the big division between the red and the white there. A big lock-up for Andrew Whitehead as well as we head into Surtees there, and Colin Cleave still setting purple sectors, about 8 seconds in front of these two. 28.7 sector 1 for Colin Cleave on that previous go around there, as we have positions trading throughout the order. This 147 certainly looks like a very pleasing car to race, and it's certainly a pleasing car to watch as well, as it looks like Andrew Whitehead lost quite a lot of speed down the straight there, actually about 109 miles an hour according to that speed trap there. I'm not sure if that's a bit of an error, but it looks like Mike Hilton has got quite a lot of work cut out for him there, as we see George Brook-Bassby getting past him there. Looks like he's holding up quite a few cars there, maybe struggling on the pace, maybe struggling on the tyres perhaps. I can tell you actually, in terms of tyres, everyone in this race running these soft compound tyres, so there must be plenty of life in this soft tyre. But Matt Daly, who started fairly far down the order, now up into P6, now fancies his chances for P5 as well as we head up through the Clark corner. Now you want to carry as much speed around this bend as possible, as Mike Hilton has. George Brook-Bassby played it a bit more safe, didn't carry quite as much speed and has lost out big time as a result of that. He's going to be side by side with Mike Hilton now. Let's see what Mike can do as we head into turn 1. Matt Daly wants a bit of this action as well, sweeping up out of nowhere under braking. I think he's got the move done on Mike Hilton. Yes, he has, as we head through turn 1 on the big downhill there, but Mike Hilton looks like he wants to fight back heading into Druids. Will he? No, he thinks better of it, goes for the safer option. It is Matt Daly up into P5, an excellent move that he executed before we even made it all the way through turn 1. A very, very risky place to make that move. You have to be quite brave. This circuit kind of drops away from you. A huge amount of elevation change here at this Brands Hatch circuit, and Andrew Whitehead looks to be struggling with the pace by the looks of things. I'm not sure if he's got a couple of engine issues, maybe just one misplaced downshift can ruin your engine. And maybe that's why we're seeing that deficit in pace down these straights, because all of a sudden he's got a big train of cars behind him, and that includes George Battersby, Matt Daly, Mike Hilton and Alan Matthews. By no means slow drivers. He's going to go on board with George Battersby now, as he is under pressure from Matt Daly, but I imagine it's more focused on trying to get that bottom spot on the podium, but Matt Daly certainly looks like he wants it as well. As we head towards Sector 3 now, Colin Cleef is still setting purple sectors. A bit of an error for Andrew Whitehead there. Will that seal his fate? I think it might, by the looks of things. He's going to lose out as we head down into clearways now, I think. But Matt Daly is looking like he wants a move done on George Battersby. A big lock-up from Andrew Whitehead up in front, and all of a sudden we have quite a close train going on here. Matt Daly gets the better run out onto clearways as we head through Clark Curve. Now, who's going to be latest on the brakes? George Battersby a little bit later than Matt Daly. That forces him a little bit wide. But he might try and close the door on Matt Daly. He does. There's contact between the two drivers as we head on to the Brabham Straight now. Heading into turn 1, we saw Matt Daly got P5 in a very brave move there. And can he do the same as he tries to take P4 away from George Battersby? No, he can't. George defends absolutely beautifully there as we head into Druids now. Positions his car in just the absolute perfect spot. Another lock-up from Andrew Whitehead up in front. That will be spurring George Battersby on, I can imagine. But all this battling has kept George and Matt Daly a little bit slower in terms of the pace, because Mike Hilton and Alan Matthews, and to some extent Will Inglis, are involved in this action. All of a sudden it appears that we might have a 5 or 6 way battle for P3, and I am all for that. This could be a very exciting race as we head towards the halfway stage now, as we'll go on board with Andrew Whitehead to see just what challenge he faces. I was about to say ahead of him, but more so behind him, really, as we see the huge train of cars heading down towards the Pilgrim's Drop now. And he has got a mighty effort in front of him. He wants to try and keep these cars behind him, and small errors like that from George Battersby will be helping Andrew Whitehead's case, as Matt Daly looks like he could be getting ready to battle George a little bit more now, as a little bit of gravel kind of kicking up there has cost him big time. Although Andrew has actually just gone purple sector 2, but George Battersby goes off the circuit, nearly collects Matt Daly for his troubles as well. The other car's very lucky to avoid him as we head onto clearways there. One small error and the back end just got away from him. I've accidentally turned up my turbo on my Alfa 75 in excitement there, but George Battersby dropped all the way back down to P9. Huge error there that cost him big time. Pretty much cost him a spot on the podium now, down to P9. Such is the close nature of this race. It is now Matt Daly up into P4 with a couple of seconds gap to Andrew Whitehead out in front by the looks of things. Yeah, about a 3-second gap, because Andrew Whitehead seems to have turned up the pace all of a sudden. Purple sector 2, a 26.2 for him on that previous lap, his best lap of the race so far. Yeah, but what a huge error for George Battersby. He returns to the pits, I can imagine, out of sheer frustration more than anything, unless he has to serve a penalty. Further down the order, Andrew Harvey now up into P6, Alan Matthews up into P5, Matt Daly up into P4 as well. He will now be focusing on trying to catch back up to Andrew Whitehead, who's done an excellent job of recovering that car when it didn't look like it had any form of race pace left in it. But we see Mike Hilton still dropping down the order, struggling to get that car back on the circuit for whatever reason. What a shame to see his race effectively come to an end like this. As we go back on board with Will Harper rather, he is able to carry on. Will Inglis able to carry on as well, but the back end looking like it was getting away from him as he headed through Hawthorne there. So maybe we're starting to see a couple of tyre issues, or drivers just not comfortable with this setup or this car for whatever reason. I must say special mention to the decals on top of the Willington Sustainer liveried car there, promoting peace in Ukraine, of course, an issue that is close to so many people's hearts. They're an excellent livery on Willington's car. As we go, I don't know who to go on board with all of a sudden, because everyone's race has just kind of become untangled all of a sudden. Andrew Harvey looks like he's got quite a bit of pace underneath him. In fact, if we compare previous lap times, he was about 2 seconds quicker than Alan Matthews up in front of him. I imagine that little bit of argy-bargy kind of putting in there, or slowing him down on that previous lap, as we see George Battersby coming out of the pit in plumb last there. What a shame to see that. But compared to the cars around him, it looks like Andrew Harvey is pretty much on the pace, or a little bit faster. He is actually just about on that previous lap on pace with Matt Daly, so a nice bit of pace behind him and much quicker than Alan Matthews that time round. So should be hoping to catch up for a battle for P5 in just a few moments time. We'll see about a second between John Baker and who is that there? That is Jack Hodson. About a second between these two as they battle it out for the lead in the AM race. there. It is Jack Hodson who leads at the moment. It'll be a nice points haul for him if he can stay where he is at the moment, but I imagine errors like that won't be helping his cause. It looks like the front end is getting a little bit overheated, a little bit overworked, or he's got no grip left in the tyres, because we see a huge amount of understeer as we headed towards the Cooper Straight there. The car was pretty much on full lock, and that has allowed John Baker to catch right back up as we head down the Pilgrim's Drop now. I've just noticed that small little rear wing on the back of this 147. As it is, I hope it is actually. That looks brilliant there. It's not full length, but something about it just suits it. That looks absolutely brilliant. I've only just spotted that. I was about to say, this is my first experience at all with the 147 GTA car, and it is looking to be quite an exciting race car by the looks of things. I'm not entirely sure what the driver's opinions are on it. That is something I will find out for the next 147 round, or the next touring car round, but I'm certainly enjoying the racing that is provided so far, and the way it looks absolutely phenomenal. Of course, these being a 4-cylinder touring car instead of the road-going GTA, which is the famous Busso-engined 3.2 litre V6. As it looks like John Baker is now catching up to Jack Hodson up in front as we head through Clark there. There's only about 8 tenths of a second rather. My math's just a little bit wrong there, as we see a disconnection there, unfortunately, signing the end of some drivers racing. As we head down into turn 1 now, that gap staying pretty much the same. John Baker a little bit quicker on that previous lap. So let's see what he can do as we head now towards the later stages of this race. Now about 3 seconds separating Willing List and Andrew Harvey. Andrew Harvey not able to catch up towards Alan Matthews as much as I thought he was able to. In fact, everyone pretty much staying at a consistent 3-second gap now as we head down towards Pilgrim's Drop. And in fact, that gap between Jack Hodson and John Baker staying pretty much the same as well, so maybe this car providing a couple of challenges in terms of overtaking. So yes, that'll be one to watch out for as we get ready for the reverse grid race coming up in a few moments time, a race where overtaking is oh so important. There's actually only about a 3-second gap between Andrew Whitehead and John Cole, so Andrew Whitehead rather looks like he's been able to pick up the pace once again and back on top form. As we see Jack Hodson getting past Barry Clayton. Why is that? Barry Clayton having a huge off by the looks of things, as does John Baker, kicking up a bit of gravel by the looks of things, lest my eyes deceive me. But Barry Clayton, his race coming all undone as well towards this later stage. What a shame to see that as we go back on board. Actually, someone who we haven't been on board with pretty much for the entirety of this race. It is Colin Knief. Colin Knief leading the race by about 14 seconds at the moment. Absolutely dominating, it must be said. A 134.7 on that previous lap, about a second clear of everyone else in terms of previous lap and best lap pace as well, although Mr. Will Harper, what a shame to see his race be ruined so early on with that small error around the clock curve. Has certainly got some pace and leaving at 130 in the 135s now, with improvements in all sectors on that previous lap. But we'll go back on board once again to show that Halford's liveried 147 GTA, who is leading this race so far. We do actually see a small error from Colin Knief. That is a bit of a rarity. Maybe it's not as rare as we think. Maybe we just don't see it because he is so far ahead so much of the time so far in this year's running. Does go purple in Sector 2, but this lap, unfortunately, his attempt a little bit ruined with that small error there. Able to carry on, luckily enough for him. Maybe we are now starting to see the tyres come towards the end of their life in this running here. And we're going to go on board with Matt Daly and Alan Matthews as they are battling it out once again. It is Alan Matthews who wants to get past Matt Daly now as we head down towards Clearways. Alan Matthews staying within the slipstream of Matt Daly rather, as we head now down towards the Clark curve. On terms of previous lap time, we have Matt Daly looks like he's had a small error, actually a 139 on the previous lap for Matt Daly. That has allowed Alan Matthews to catch right back up. These two were battling it out earlier on and have now been forced to separate. We see Matt Daly diving towards the left hand side of the circuit, taking the outside line, taking the wider line, heading into turn 1, going up onto 2 wheels for both of the cars here, absolutely wringing their neck in, trying to get everything they can out of this chassis as we head down towards Druid now. Matt Daly there, maybe trying to break the slipstream, maybe trying to just force the car in a little bit of a kind of pseudo-Scandi flick almost as we head into turn 1 there. Whatever it was, it worked as the both drivers going quite wide there. Alan Matthews going a little bit wider than Matt Daly as we head down the Cooper Straight now and up towards Surtees. It is still Matt Daly who leads this little battle at the moment, about 0.5 of a second clear as we speak. Heading down the Pilgrim's Drop now, Alan Matthews will have the advantage of the slipstream now as we head up into Hawthorne. And it looks like he's going to try and take the inside line possibly. It looks like Matt Daly is trying to take a bit of a wider entry into all of these corners so far, and that will cost him a little bit in terms of outright lap time, I can imagine, but is going to be excellent in terms of defence for him here, as he is now entirely focused on a defensive drive, I can imagine, because Andrew Whitehead in P3 is about 10 seconds clear at this stage, so unless we have some form of error late on, it is all going to be alright for Andrew Whitehead up in P3, but it looks like Alan Matthews is trying absolutely everything to get back fast now as we head down clearways, kicking up a bit of dirt as he goes along, riding over as many of the curves, as many of the apexes as possible. Head up into the Clark curve once again. The car nearly getting up onto two wheels for Matt Daly once again. Maybe a little bit of a difference in his setup. I imagine will it be a bit more of a harder suspension setup for him, although the car looked quite eager to roll through that final corner as we head down towards turn one once again, going over the curbs up onto two wheels, and now as we head down towards Druids, there's a little bit of a bigger delta between the two cars as we head through the tight right hand hairpin. And it looks to be that Matt Daly is keeping Alan Matthews at bay so far. Let's see what happens as we carry on. In terms of previous lap, on that last lap there, about 0.2 of a second quicker for Matt Daly, as Alan Matthews looks like he goes a little bit wide, heading down towards the Cooper Straight once again. That gap now standing at about 0.6 of a second, so very close between these two. It is also very close between Paul Millman and Steve Knight as they are battling out in the AM racing at the moment. It's not for the win in the AM race, but it is for the podium, as it is Paul Millman holding P3 on the AM running at the moment, heading down into turn one now, and Steve Knight trying to take that away from him, riding up onto two wheels himself as we head through turn one. He's going to have the inside line for Druids. He's going to be brave under braking. No, well defended from Paul Millman there, still leading this little pack at the moment. As we head now onto the Cooper Straight, it is still about 0.4 of a second, so that gap building up slightly between these two cars as we head into the second sector now. But Steve Knight is certainly looking to fight back as we head up into Surtees. He's going to defend is Paul Millman, taking the inside line there, and it looks like he is going to be fairly comfortable for the moment. But for how long, actually, because it looks like Steve Knight might have got a bit of a better exit as we head onto the Pilgrim's Drop in just a moment's time. There has the benefit of the slipstream now and switches back to get ready to take the inside line up into Hawthorne. Will he be able to? Braver under braking potentially? We can't quite find out yet. No, he's not able to. Kicking up a little bit of dirt as he tries to keep a tighter line as possible now. And that has now actually brought Guy Swarbrick into the mix all of a sudden. And there's actually contact between Steve Knight and Guy Swarbrick. Wasn't expecting that. I saw Guy Swarbrick catching up. I thought that was just as a result of the two in front of him battling out. But for just a tiny margin of error there, and that margin of error was clearly a little bit too small, and the two cars coming together, that will, I imagine, be a bit of a relief for Paul Millman in P3 in the AM running at the moment. As we go back on board with Alan Matthews and Matt Daly, that gap building up just a little bit now, perhaps a little bit of rear end rotation. The car looking quite eager to turn in actually there for Alan Matthews. A couple of drivers potentially having the car set up to swing the back end in. Actually, I tell you what is quite close as well, P2 and P3 all of a sudden. Not sure there was an error for John Cole there. Let's look at previous lap times. I don't think there was. No, by looks of things, on previous lap they were quite close together. But it is John Cole all of a sudden under pressure from Andrew Whitehead. Andrew Whitehead did qualify P2. I imagine he might be wanting that back now as we get ready to head down clearways. We'll use the benefit of the slipstream as we head down the final straight before we get ready to start another lap there. But as we head into Clark, let's see what Andrew Whitehead can do. Rather, Alan Matthews, I tell you what he can do. He can get past Matt Daly all of a sudden. I think a bit of an error as we head onto clearways for Matt Daly, unfortunately, at the wrong time. Only a couple of minutes to go in this race, and it is Matt Daly now down into P5. But Andrew Whitehead certainly wants to get this move done on John Cole up ahead as we head into turn one, echoing his line as we head up into Druids now. Let's see what he does differently to John Cole this time round. I don't think he'll do anything differently. In fact, he's just going to try and copy and keep himself calm, keep himself collected, and try and force an error out in front. Very safe play at this stage in the race. John Cole looking like his car getting quite eager to get a little bit twitchy, perhaps running over the apex as we head down the Cooper Straight now. Surtees, you can make or break your race here as you lose or gain so much speed running onto the Pilgrim's Drop rather. And that doesn't look like that has been the case for John Cole this time round, actually, as he has executed quite a nice exit there. Or has he? He's now pretty much side by side with Andrew Whitehead. Will this be Andrew Whitehead's final opportunity? Under braking there, John Cole tries to squeeze him out as much as possible. Luckily, both drivers still on the tarmac there. We saw two cars coming together here on the previous lap. Will we see that again? No, I don't think we will. Andrew Whitehead was looking for a move up the inside there. Wasn't able to get it, unfortunately, for him, but is so close to that excellent rear spoiler of John Cole in front. And it's all gone wrong for him there. I'm not sure there's a little bit of contact or the car just getting away from it on the apex there, but able to keep it on the tarmac, lucky enough for him. But loses out big time in terms of pace now, over a second behind. Colin Keith setting another fastest lap of this race for what will be the penultimate lap of this race now. This very, very exciting, electric race, really. Now Andrew Wyatt dropping back from John Cole. Got about a second to make up in the next couple of laps if he wants to take back that P2. Alan Matthews running fairly comfortably in P4 now. Well, let's say comfortably, for how long will that be? It looks like Matt Daly's on a bit of a revenge tour for the final bar of this race now, about 0.8 of a second separating the two. In terms of previous lap time, Matt Daly about a second faster than Alan Matthews. All of a sudden he's pulled that out of nowhere. Now, he hasn't been anywhere near that. I say he hasn't been anywhere near that. He's been pretty near that, but not consistently in this race so far. Running a 1:35.6 on that previous lap, catching right back up to Alan Matthews. He's certainly going to fight till the bitter end for P4 here. At Brands Hatch, someone else who's fighting towards the bitter end is John Baker and Barry Clayton. Barry Clayton involved in that huge pack of cars fighting for the podium earlier on, dropping back unfortunately for him there. Now looking to fight for P10, about 0.6 of a second clear, has dropped back from John Baker ever so slightly. But we're going to go back on board with Matt Daly and Alan Matthews as Matt Daly tries to find a way to get past Alan Matthews back towards P4 now as we head up through Hawthorne. And it is still only about half a second. Right towards the end of this race, we have quite a few little battles developing once again. Andrew Wyatt is still only about 0.8 of a second behind John Cole, so maybe he can force an error and take back that P2. As you see, Alan Matthews trying to carry as much speed as possible, using as much of the track as he dares now. Only about 0.3 of a second separating these two drivers. Andrew Harvey up into P4, apparently. No, it's just a bit of a timing glitch. Dirt being kicked up by Matt Daly's cars. We head onto clearways now, and it is still only about 3 or 4 tenths of a second separating these two as we get ready to head into the final corner of this lap. We're now on the final lap of this race, so we're going to have to go on board with Colin Keith at some point, but I don't want to, no offence Colin, because all the battling is going on elsewhere on circuit at the moment, as we now have Matt Daly in the slipstream. We've seen Matt Daly can pull off some excellent moves heading into turn 1 to take the position. He's looking like he's going to set up another one of those potentially, tries to go around the outside, but Alan Matthews predicted it, blocks him off just about as cheekily as you would dare there, still takes the lead of this battle for the moment, up into B4. Matt Daly trying to find a way up the inside into Druids, isn't able to quite yet. Maybe he will be able to as we now head into the final few moments of this race. It is Colin Keith heading through Hawthorne, still in the lead, about 20 seconds clear of everyone else at this point in time, but Matt Daly is desperately trying to find a way past as we get ready to head up into Surtees now has the inside line into Surtees. Is this going to be make or break for him? Beautifully defended by Alan Matthews. I'm switching between these two now because we want to see Colin Keith come home after a beautiful dominative drive there, really. But it is Matt Daly who's now past Alan Matthews as we head down the Pilgrim's Drop. He just about edges out in forwards, going to have the inside line there, but is Alan Matthews going to try and be as brave as possible in the braking? There's contact between the two, both able to still carry on, luckily for those, but it is Colin Keith heading round the Clark curve now. In just a few moments time we'll be crossing the line in P1 there. Colin Keith takes the victory in race 1 this evening. Congratulations to Colin for an excellent drive there. John Cole now battling out with Andrew Whitehead as well as we head down clearways, heading through the Clark curve, still leading in P2 at the moment as we take the inside line, does John Cole there, but Andrew Whitehead trying to find a way around the outside, gets a better exit, but I don't know if it's going to be enough time for him there. Battling out, contact at the very end there, both take each other out, crossing the line. John Cole P2, Andrew Whitehead P3, luckily both able to cross the line there. Matt Daly leads this pack in the end, coming home in P4. What an excellent end to the race. I've not seen an end to a race like this before. It must be excellent racing going on here tonight. Alan Matthews coming home P5 as well, Andrew Harvey P6, Willing List P7. I'm not sure how much of that has just clipped. I imagine quite a lot of that might have clipped there. Apologies there, but I was getting a little bit excited, it must be said. Will Harper coming home P8, Jack Hodson will be coming home P9 as well. Still battling it out as well, about a second between him and John Baker as we head down clearways now, up into P7 apparently for Jack Hodson there. I'm not sure what's gone on there, but as we come home now, it is going to be Jack Hodson coming home P9, John Baker P10, Barry Clayton P11, Paul Millman P12, Guy Swarbrick P13 and Rosie Hodson P14. So congratulations to Jack Hodson there for taking the AM race win as well. Steve Knight P15, Mike Hilton classified P16 I believe. So congratulations to Colin Keith and congratulations to everyone else for an absolutely ballistic race one. That has got to be an absolute highlight for my time in the AROC Racing Leagues commentating there, it must be said, and that has made me even more excited for race 2, the reverse grid race, coming up in just a few moments time. So I'll see you in a few moments time. And welcome back to the action here at Brands Hatch, ladies and gentlemen. We've got just over a minute until lights out, and I've just about composed myself following that absolutely thrilling end to race 1. I can tell you it is George Brook Battersby on pole position, Mike Hilton P2, Barry Clayton P3, Will Harper P4, Will Inglis P5, Andrew Harvey P6, Alan Matthews P7, and Matt Daly P8. That was certainly a thrilling end to race 1, and I have, as such, adjusted my microphone to make sure we have a little bit less clipping compared to the end of race 1. But looks things we've just about made it through with minimal clipping, but just in case we have, and I hope we do, have as much excitement as we did in race 1, the audio should be all good. And we now have just about 30 seconds until lights out. Every driver running the soft tyre, once again, it is clearly the tyre of choice for this car and this circuit. It probably will be the case that we run the soft tyre for every circuit that this car sees in this year's running, as we now get get ready to start another thrilling race, I presume. Not to put a bit of a commentator's curse on it now, as we start to hear the revs rising as the drivers get ready to launch away once again now. Here at Brands Hatch, it is 6 red lights on the gantry. And we are away. A huge amount of tyre smoke for George Brook Battersby that time. Mike Hilton bogging down perhaps a little bit. I was about to say gripped up more, but maybe bogging down. And it seems to be whoever has the inside line there pole position really is quite the advantage heading into turn 1. Willinglis looking like he nearly got it a little bit wrong there, but is still fighting for P3. They're under braking, tries to take it away from Will Harper. I don't think he's going to be able to there. No, in fact, beautiful move from Willinglis. Gets back on the throttle, able to take P2 in one fell swoop there. There's a little bit of lockup from George Brook Battersby out in front now. Will Harper losing P4 and now down into P6, lost P4 to both Andrew Harvey and Matt Daly. As we have a huge amount of collision warnings appearing on my display here. Not entirely sure what that is about. We'll catch up in just a second to find out what that is all about. As we have Will Harper dropping back once again, unfortunately. Both races not going his way at the start there. I imagine a bit of a weekend to forget for him. We know he will be at the all-important point totals because he's certainly got the pace to have it there. And there's a huge collision down the Pilgrim's Drop there. Who is that involving? That is involving John Cole and Andrew Whitehead. 2 of our podium sitters in the end of the running in the last race, now all the way down in P14 and P15. What a shame to see their races come to such a quick end there. Andrew Whitehead carrying quite a lot of damage by the looks of things as they headed down the Pilgrim's Drop there. So I imagine it will be a bit of a race to forget for these two as well. Colin Knief is actually down in P12 as well. He is not broken away as much as I thought he would have, although he'll certainly have the pace to climb through the order, I presume. Let's see what the other 2 podium sitters from last race can do as well, as it is George Brook Battersby under pressure from Willinglis. We head round the Clark curve there. George Brook Battersby taking the wider line, potentially able to carry more speed, but has to go that extra distance there. That has allowed Willinglis to edge out in front as they cross the line to start the next lap. Has the inside line under braking there, gets that move executed, gets the move signed, sealed and delivered as well. Beautiful move from Willinglis to take the lead of race 2 for the moment. Then Mike Hilton up into P3 as well. As I mentioned, he certainly has the pace for it. Race 1 did not go his way, but he looks to be redeeming himself in race 2 now, then, as he is near enough side by side with Matt Daly. Tries to squeeze Matt as much as possible on a bit of a defensive drive there to keep Matt Daly at bay. I imagine pretty much every driver wants to try and keep Matt Daly at bay. He's certainly got the pace to dominate the race in the way that Colin Knief has as well, but he's going to go round the outside of Surtees. Tries to get the exit, although Mike Hilton has to run a little bit wider as well, making contact with him, but both able to carry on. No major ill effects from that, but that has slowed them down a little bit, allowed Andrew Harvey to catch back up to them as we head down the Pilgrim's Drop now. It is going to be Alan Matthews in P6 at the moment. Andrew Harvey trying to find a way up into P4 potentially. It is still Matt Daly who leads his pack then at the moment, up into P3 for Matt Daly as we head through Hawthorne, now onto the podium there, and Mike Hilton now focusing his efforts on defending from Andrew Harvey, which unfortunately has not gone his way, as there's a huge amount of contact between the 3 drivers there. More crashes happening because Alan Matthews gets slightly pushed into, I can't work out who it is, that looks like it is Mike Hilton there. Mike Hilton dropping all the way down, involved in that as well. Guy Swarbrick, by the looks of things, a huge collision between about 5 or 6 cars, even maybe 4 or 5, but what a shame to see the race go that way there. Andrew Harvey, the back end of Andrew Harvey's car, getting away from him there. He's lost quite a lot of time as we head onto clearways there. That has allowed Matt Daly and that has allowed Steve Knight and Barry Clayton, by the looks of things, to catch back up there. But what a shame for the midfield there. It's kind of all gone a little bit wrong on that lap. Barry Clayton now finding a way past Andrew Harvey as we head onto the Brabham Straight into turn 1 now. Near enough too wide, but it is going to be Barry Clayton who wins out this time round. As we see Willinglis still leading this race, and now by about 2.5 seconds. Purple sectors in the previous 2 sectors. George Brook Battersby unfortunately not able to challenge him at this point in time. John Cole up into P8, so he's already recovered quite nicely there. Andrew Whitehead, I think, had to return to the pits to, I imagine, mend that car there. It looks like he has. What a shame to see his race come to an end like that. But John Cole, certainly some points still on the cards for him as we go towards now the AM race, and it is John Baker leading the AM race at the moment, up in P7, just ahead of John Cole there. So doing a nice job is John Baker, quite high up in the running as we head down the Pilgrim's Drop with both John Baker and John Cole now. As Colin Knief overtaking Matt Daly there round the outside of the Hawthorne bend, but Alan Matthews rather fights back taking the inside line there, able to position his car nicely to get him under braking there as well. Still leading this little, or still in the middle of this little pack there in P5 at the moment. Will Harper in all of that obviously dropped back down at the very start of the race, now finds himself in P4, but for how long, that is the question, because Alan Matthews is looking to be quite competitive there as both cars get in the back end out there, but Will Harper certainly going for a bit of a Tokyo drift by the looks of things, now side by side with Alan Matthews and pretty much side by side with Colin Knief as well, because Colin Knief is attached to the gearbox muddled all my words there, is right on the rear bumper of Alan Matthews' car as well, and loses out there, does Alan Matthews. Will Harper finds his way back past his head into turn 1, and through turn 1 it is Colin Knief who leads there. Will Harper once again drifting his way through the corner. Can't imagine that's doing many favours in terms of tyre life. But Colin Knief heads into Druids in front of this trio now, and it is George Brook-Battersby who has lost out in terms of the podium positions, because Matt Daly has found himself up into P2 at the moment, and I imagine he's going to try and break away and fight his way up towards Will Inglis. And let's see what he can do now with a bit of clean air. But Colin Knief is setting purple sectors, trying to break away from these cars, but that won't help him. A little bit of oversteer for him as well, so the drivers maybe trying to get a bit more out of the car in race 2 to try and get up through the order, and we're starting to see the ill effects of that potentially. This car not looking like it is the most balanced or most easy to drive car, but it's certainly exciting to watch racing, so I hope we do carry on with it, that is for sure. But as we go on board now with John Baker leading that AM race then, and John Cole has managed to find his way past, but Barry Clayton is now putting the pressure on as well, so I imagine he's more focused on that. We have had a memo from the organisers to can we please reduce the amount of battling going on between the two divisions, between Pro and AM, so the drivers will be weary of that, I am sure, but at the same time I imagine they are still enjoying the battling nonetheless, and it's certainly exciting to watch as we see Barry Clayton now getting past John Baker as well. It is a fine balance between slowing yourself down and ruining your own race, but also allowing the cars around you to carry on their separate race as well, and I think John Baker seems to have found that balance nicely, as we see Alan Matthews dropping back there, allowing Will Harper back past, still in P5, so Will Harper not losing out too much, although I imagine he'd like to be higher up the order. As we'll go on board now with Matt Daly. Matt Daly absolutely flying, goes purple in sector 3 that time round, has caught up to Will Inglis, still got about 4 seconds, or probably about 3.5 seconds if we really want to start putting the pressure on, but about a second faster than Will Inglis on that previous time round, 1:35.44 Matt Daly. Did I say Will Harper then? I meant Matt Daly. Apologies there. Getting the names all mixed up. I think it's still the ill effect of the end of race 1. That was absolutely phenomenal. I can't get over that. Some of the best racing I've seen in a long time there. John Baker now in P10. Is losing out a little bit, gets a little bit wrong by the looks of things. Now under pressure from Jack Cotton. Jack Cotton for the lead of the AM race. Seems to have found his way past as we head down towards the Pilgrim's Drop, although a little bit of a squeeze wide there has put him on the grass. Hasn't lost out too much of a result there, actually. Very nicely gets back onto the tarmac and still able to carry on. He's going to go round the outside of Hawthorne, but loses out there a few tenths. Still about 3 tenths behind this time round, but carries on and gets a bit of a better exit through Hawthorne, but loses out again because John Baker is able to execute a defensive move under braking nicely there. As we see him dropping back a little bit more actually, so maybe he kind of forced a bit of a charge there towards John Baker and has to settle for P11 for the time being, as we will go on board with Matt Daly once again, I believe, because he is still gaining on Will Inglis now, still running quite a bit quicker this lap. About a tenth quicker in sector 1, 4 tenths quicker in sector 2, and in sector 3 about 3 tenths quicker as well. But I say in sector 3, we haven't come to the end of sector 3, so that is the last go around of sector 3. No, it's not, it is in fact the end of sector 3. Apologies there, I was looking at the wrong blip on the transponders, on the kind of set of transponders there on the track diagram, so apologies there. Of course I do have a track diagram which doesn't have the corner names, so I am once again flying solo. Hopefully I haven't got too many corner names wrong. I think I've done alright so far, but Matt Daly is still catching up as we speak, heading down the Pilgrim's Drop now. That gap now stands at about 3 seconds, and he is looking quite competitive, that is for sure, although Will Inglis has picked up the pace, it must be said, has now set a best lap of 1:35.2, a little bit faster than Matt Daly's best lap actually, but on the last lap still about 8 tenths of a second slower. So it is anyone's call right now, because obviously battling it out with Will Inglis will slow Matt Daly down as well. Running wide like that might also slow down Will Inglis, as you see him running a little bit wide in that Tainer liveried 147. as actually Matt Daly and, apologies, Alan Matthews, I see MAT there, and I instantly think of Matt Daly, apologies, Matt Daly, again, Alan Matthews and John Cole battling out there. John Cole taking a very aggressive line taking very kind of artistic interpretation of the track limits there. I imagine he'll get away with that because it's all in the fun of it, trying to catch up to Alan Matthews, and he probably will have lost a little bit of time running over that much grass as well. Very lucky to keep it composed. Actually, who has lost out there? I think George Brook-Batterby has lost out to Colin Knief. Wasn't quite following that battle, of course. Colin Knief charging his way through the field, gets his bottom spot on the podium on the exit of the Clark curve down the Brabham Straight, able to get the move done on George Brook-Batterby. George Brook-Batterby to be more occupied with a little bit of 147 GCA acrobatics, getting the car up onto two wheels now. Of course, this is the 147 GCA, not the 156 GCA, which is what is pictured on the stream graphics. Apologies for that one. A bit pressed for time this evening with all the technical difficulties. Wasn't able to get a set of stream graphics done for the 147, which is making its debut with all of its fresh liveries that have just been kind of lovingly put on by the organisers this evening. So great to see the 147 here this evening, racing at Brands Hatch. But now actually we see Matt Daly catching up to William Bliss at quite a rate of knots, only about 2 seconds separating the two cars now, as we will watch this battle as it develops throughout the race. Only about a tenth of a second between John Cole and Alan Matthews, and they come together at the bottom of the Pilgrim's Drop there. Alan Matthews is drifting his way through Hawthorn, as is John Cole for that matter. Both of them are trying to get a bit of heat in the rear tyres by the look of things, able to keep pointing in the right direction, which is good to see, but they lost out a huge amount of time to Barry Clayton behind them. Should be fairly safe from him at the moment, still about 3 seconds separating the two, but both very lucky to keep the car pointing in the right direction there. Alan Matthews in particular, a huge tank slapper there as he headed into Hawthorn. I'm surprised to see him recover that, but very good to see that he did. Barry Clayton is actually under pressure from Andrew Harvey, if you look there, so he may be trying to pick his fights really, maybe focusing more on keeping Andrew Harvey at bay for the time being, as we head onto the Brabham Straight once again now. It is still Alan Matthews who leads, but for how long, because this battle looks like it could get quite intense as we approach the halfway stage in this race already. This race has absolutely flown by, as did race one, as we see them now using as much of the track as possible, riding over the curbs, heading towards the exit of Turn 1, towards Pilgrim's Rise now, and through Druids there. Both of them trying to race each other as intensely as possible as we head now onto the Cooper Straight, as we have disconnection unfortunately there. Looks like the back end of Alan Matthews' car getting away from him once again, having to put a bit of opposite lock-in as we head onto the Cooper Straight now. He will lose a little bit of time as a result of that. Both of them going around the outside line there, going wide on entry, cutting onto the apex, just kissing the apex a little bit as we exit onto the Pilgrim's Drop now. And we see, it looks like Barry Clayton in the distance there, slowly but surely under pressure from Andrew Harvey as well. A little bit cleaner into Hawthorn for these two this time round, which is lovely to see, but certainly the pressure is on for quite a few drivers in the field now. Certainly for Will Inglis as well, as he can now see the front end of Matt Daly's 147 GTA firmly in his rearview mirror, about a second separating two, as we see Andrew Harvey getting past Barry Clayton as well by quite some margin by the looks of it. He's about 2 seconds later already, so perhaps an error for Barry Clayton on this lap, unfortunately for him. As we see Matt Daly actually setting his fastest lap of the race so far, 1:35 flat. Very competitive lap time for him there now, as we see him heading through the Clark curve. That's not Barry Clayton, that's not Matt Daly, that's Barry Clayton. Apologies, I saw a bright yellowish car and assumed it was Matt Daly. Apologies there, but it is Matt Daly, and it looks like there's been a bit of an incident between Alan Matthews and John Cole by the looks of things. Alan Matthews gets pushed, doesn't get pushed off, but is in the gravel at Turn 1. A huge collision for him, ruining the front end of his car, and that puts a bit of a stop on his race. Unfortunately, I'm not quite sure what happened. Can't make a comment on it because we didn't see it, unfortunately, but luckily for John Cole, at least he is able to carry on in P6 at the moment, but Andrew Harvey is now quite close behind all of a sudden, so they've lost time in that instance, unfortunately for both drivers. Such is the nature of such close racing, it must be said. And speaking of close racing, Matt Daly now right behind Will Inglis as we head towards Sector 3 in just a couple of moments' time now. Yeah, now only about 6 tenths of a second on that previous lap then. It was Matt Daly about 8 tenths of a second faster on the previous lap, so absolutely flying behind Willing-Bliss at the moment. Willing-Bliss must be feeling the pressure now. Both drivers, as all drivers are, on the soft compound of tyre, and Matt Daly looking like he's getting ready to set up a move as we head into Clark Curve. Now near enough side by side on entry. Who's going to be braver on the brakes? It is Willing-Bliss, who's going to brake as late as possible to try and put his car in the best defensive position possible. It looks like he has. He's going to try and squeeze Matt Daly just a little bit. No, but he's not giving him a slipstream, that is for sure. But does he need to? Because we know Matt Daly is very capable of a move into turn 1, but he's not going to be able to from that far back. Unfortunately for him, a lock-up though from Willing-Bliss will spur him on, as it looks like Matt Daly is going to have the inside line heading up to Druids, but no, he doesn't want to take the inside line. He wants to go around the outside, wants to make it a little bit more difficult for himself, and there's a huge amount of oversteer for Willing-Bliss, leading this race for so long, able to catch it right at the very end there. Very lucky of him to catch that, very skilled of him as well to catch what seems to be quite a snappy, quite a tail-happy car there. Catches it just at the last second. Still in the lead of this race for now, because Matt Daly had to throw the anchors on to make sure the front end of his car didn't catch a bit of damage, didn't end up writing his car off, but that has brought Colin Keith into play all of a sudden. Now the podium is only separated by 2 seconds as we head down the Pilgrim's Drop, and in fact there's only 3/10 of a second separating these two as we head into Hawthorne. So let's see what happens this time. Matt Daly is closer, and earlier on in the lap he seems to be a bit of a Sector 1 specialist, does Matt Daly. Not to say he's fast, he's not fast everywhere else in the lap, he certainly is, but Sector 1 seems to be where he enjoys most of his overtakes, that is for sure. And now he's been putting the pressure on for so long against Willing-Bliss. Willing-Bliss is starting to crack, potentially under that pressure, and they are now getting ready to lap some cars actually by the looks of things, as we head into Sector 3 down clearways now. And it is still Matt Daly behind at this point in time, but he has the slipstream, he has the better exit onto clearways actually. It's going to be side by side as we head down towards the Clark Curve. Willie though, because Willing-Bliss gives him a little squeeze, and both of them taking the inside line, but Matt Daly carrying so much more speed through the Clark Curve, has to drop onto the brakes a little bit by the looks of things in order to avoid a bit of contact there. And we now have Willing-Bliss flashing Paul Millman out in front to try and get the traffic out of the way there, as we see a bit of rotation on the rear end of Willing-Bliss's car, a huge amount of rotation there, putting him near enough into a wall, able to catch it right at the very last second there. And in fact Matt Daly is hampered by a bit of traffic. He collects Paul Millman, that slows him down ever so slightly. It is Willing-Bliss who still leads at this point in time then, and it is now Colin Knief in second all of a sudden. Matt Daly now dropping into third position, both him and Colin running wide onto the Cooper Straight. They've lost out big time there. I thought it was all over for Willing-Bliss, but the lap traffic played into his favour, played into his hands rather, big time, as we head now up down towards the Pilgrim's Drop. And it is Willing-Bliss still in the lead of this race, but for how long? Now he's got Colin Knief, who dominated qualifying, dominated race 1, who now fancies his chances getting back past. Is he going to try and go around the outside, heading into Hawthorne? Let's see what happens. Under braking there, carries more speed round the outside of the corner, forces Willing-Bliss to slow down on the inside, and takes the lead of this race so far. Then it is Colin Knief now leading this race all of a sudden, runs a little bit wide on the exit there, nearly gets it wrong. Will he be able to keep ahead for the time being? I think he will be able to. He's got just enough of an air gap between the two, and Willing-Bliss in fact goes wide, helping Colin Knief's case just that little bit more. In fact goes quite wide, allows Matt Daly up into P2. So it's all gone wrong towards the end of this lap when it went so right for him at the start of this lap. A bit of a roller coaster that previous lap for Willing-Bliss, that is to be sure. Now it is Matt Daly in P2. He's still trying to find a way past P1 to take the lead in this race, but all of a sudden it's now battling against Colin Knief. Colin Knief, who's done so well at Brands Hatch this weekend, he's going to have his work cut out for him. Is Matt Daly losing out by a few seconds on that previous lap as a result of that incident. Here at Druids now, it's going to be a little bit cleaner though between all 3 cars on the podium this time round, that is for sure, as we now have 3 seconds separating the 3 podium runners at this point in time. It is amazing, after all that battling, after what seemed like quite a few incidents in that previous lap, they are still only separated by about 3 seconds. Excellent racing going on between these 3 then. Although I am sure from this evening there will be a few comments from some drivers towards some of the competitors, that is for sure. It has made for some excellent viewing, that is for sure. So if you can forget the competitiveness and just try to enjoy what has been an absolutely brilliant evening's worth of racing, I'm sure you'll enjoy watching back the stream, that is for sure. As we go on board now with George Brook Batterby, who might be under pressure from Will Harper in a few moments time as we head down the Pilgrim's Drop. Will Harper has been doing quite a good job of staying whereabouts he needs to in the midfield. I've spoke a bit too soon, apologies Will. A bit of the commentator's curse perhaps, running a little bit wide, and that will put a hamper on your charge for the little time being, going wide once again actually, but it is Mike Hilton and Alan Matthews battling it out now as we head into Sector 3. In fact, no, we don't head to Sector 3 at all. We are now heading down the Pilgrim's Drop, and it is Alan Matthews who's going to have the inside line. Mike Hilton is slightly out in front now, so let's see who wins out this time around. It is Mike Hilton who is actually going to come through. Hawthorne in front is going to be in front. Who's going to be brave on the brakes? It is Mike Hilton who's going to be able to put the anchors on and still in the lead for the time being, but for how long he's certainly under pressure now, as are a couple of other cars. By the looks of things, we're going to go on board with Steve Knight and Jack Hodson in just a few moments time. There it is Rosie Hodson. Apologies Rosie, they are near enough side by side as they now head down towards Clearways in a couple of moments time. Rosie Hodson going around the outside, able to keep ahead of Steve Knight just for the time being then. But Steve Knight certainly is putting the pressure on. If we compare previous lap times now, it is pretty much neck and neck. 140.3 for Rosie Hodson and a 140.2 rather on the previous lap for Steve Knight, as they are now side by side heading down Clearways. And it is going to be Rosie Hodson who has the inside line by the looks of things. That should help her out heading into the Clark curve, unless Steve Knight likes to carry a bit more speed on the outside there, as it looks like he's done a bit of an undercut there, able to do a bit of a switchback. Now heading down the Bradman Straight there, near enough side by side once again as we start the next lap. Steve Knight is going to have the inside line this time. Who's going to be braver on the brakes? It's going to be Rosie Hodson, who's just about able to keep in front for the time being. Near enough making contact to two cars there. Steve Knight kind of dives in to ensure that they don't, but now has the inside for Druids as well. Very brave with the braking for Steve Knight. Takes the inside line and should be getting the better exit as well. He does. He takes P13 away from Rosie Hodson as we now head towards the Cooper Straight, but Rosie's fighting back. Now has the inside line there, able to defend a little bit, box him off. Now has P13 once again. The battling going throughout the field here. Hot in the AM race as well, as we now see them heading up towards the Pilgrim's Drop. Rosie not getting the best exit out of 30s by the looks of things. That will help Steve Knight out hugely as we now head down towards the Pilgrim's Drop, as we go back on board just for a moment's time between Mike Hilton and Alan Matthews. Looks like Mike Hilton has won out for the time being. The battle still raging on between Rosie Hodson and Steve Knight now, as we looks like Steve Knight rather is going to try and take the inside line. Thinks about it, but thinks better of it potentially, and might have been a bit too brave from that far back. Still only about 3 minutes to go in this race. Actually, this race has absolutely flown by, and these two looking like they could be ready to battle until the very end now, as we get ready to head onto Clearways. The exit through this corner really does matter now, as we see Steve Knight not gaining much on the exit, but now in the slipstream, so that should help him out big time as he comes up alongside Rosie now. Let's see who wins out through the Clark curve there. Rosie looking like she'd have to put on quite a lot of steering off there to get the car through the corner, so maybe struggling with a little bit of understeer. That will not be helping her case at all at this stage in the race. And I was about to say the battle between Mike Hilton and Alan Matthews looks like it could be over, but I don't think that is the case at all actually, as we now join these two as they head through onto the Cooper Straight rather, up through Surtees. It is Mike Hilton trying to carry as much speed as possible through the bends here. Are those two running pretty much the same livery? I think they are. Oh no, that is John Baker rather. John Baker, Mike Hilton and Alan Matthews now forming a bit of a train heading through the Pilgrim's Drop, heading a bit of a three-way battle all of a sudden. It is John Baker leading the AM race, I believe. No, it is not. It is, no, it is. Apologies, John there. It is John leading the AM race at the moment. He's doing very well in the AM standings, but there's been there's contact between John Baker and Mike Hilton. That will not play into Mike Hilton's hands at all there. Dropping back by a few seconds already. That helps Alan Matthews out big time, able to break away from Mike Hilton as a result of that, and should be a kind of quite comfortable now towards the end of this race. John Baker shouldn't be battling with the pro runners at this point in time, so shouldn't be able to get back past Alan Matthews if Alan Matthews has a bit of clear air now. Let's see what happens in this battle, as it looks like it could be developing as much as it is between Rosie Hodson and Steve Knight. These two still battling even while we've been away from them, as it looks like the car looks just so eager to turn in. It looks like it's the type of front-wheel drive chassis that I would enjoy. Not that I am a pacey racer by any means at all, but the type of front-wheel drive chassis that I really enjoy. I don't like that much of a balanced front-wheel drive car. It may be more predictable, more kind of a lot pacier, as we see a huge amount of airtime for Rosie Hodson, clipping the curb a little bit too hard by the looks of things, and gets the car up onto two wheels. Luckily able to carry on, doesn't lose out too much as a result of that, still carrying as much speed through the corner as possible. In fact, carrying a lot more speed through the Clark curve that time round compared to her previous lap, but looks like a little bit messy through turn 1. Perhaps that has allowed Steve Knight to get a little bit closer now. We've only got about a minute to go. Colin Knief leading this race once again. It's going to be another Grand Slam for Colin Knief by the looks of things, and Rosie Hodgson is certainly under pressure from Steve Knight, as it looks like this battle is going to be on to the very end of this race. Steve Knight getting a little bit of oversteer through that corner there. But yes, as I was saying, I don't tend to enjoy that much of a predictable kind of fast front-wheel drive chassis. I enjoy something that's a little bit playful, something that's a little bit that keeps you on your toes a little bit, and that looks like that is the case with this 147 GTA here. You never know, you might find me in a Sunday Fun race at some point in time. That'll be a bit fun to watch, perhaps. A little bit of in-car commentary, maybe. That could be something that the viewers want to see. Let me know if that is the case, because I'll certainly give it a go, as we now have Steve Knight's trying to find a way past Rosie Hodgson still, as they are near enough side by side at this point. Who's going to be brave on the braking? Rosie Hodgson defends as much as she can, tries to box him off there, and makes contact with Steve Knight for head troubles as well. So that gap building up just a little bit more now as it comes to the end of the timer. We're now on the penultimate lap of this race, with Colin Knief, he heads through Hawthorne, has broken away from Matt Daly by about 4 seconds already, so not quite the domination that we saw in race 1, having to work his way up through the field in this reverse grid race, but still got a nice gap behind him as we're now on the penultimate lap, rather, towards the end of the penultimate lap. So this was played into Colin Knief's hands nicely, this race 2 here at Brands Hatch, as we see John Baker and Mike Hilton still about 7/10 of a second between each other. So Mike Hilton not able to get back past in order to battle it out with Alan Matthews towards the end of this race, which is a shame for him. So go on board with Will Harper and John Cole, actually. These two still embroiled in a bit of a battle, actually, as we see George Buckbatterby out in front, kicking up a little bit of dirt, it must be said, and now won't be helping him too much in terms of outright lap pace, but I imagine he's not too concerned with the battling at the moment, because the battling is all going on behind him between P5 and P6, heading down clearways now. It is John Cole in the slipstream, heading round the Clark curve now. It looks to be fairly safe for Will Harper if he carries on with this current pace. He should have P5 in the bag, but for how long now, as we see John Cole has the slipstream heading down Brabham Straight. Who's going to be braver into turn 1? John Cole's getting ready to set himself up into turn 1 here, as we see George Buckbatterby diving into the air once again, as we've seen so many cars riding over that curve there, that inside curve at turn 1, as we go on board with Rosie Hodgson and Steve Knight. That gap building up a little bit now by about a second, so a little bit more comfortable for those two. But it is Will Harper who's battling it out with John Cole. I'm going to have to go on board with Colin Knief at some point, as we see him coming towards the end of this race as well. Not much screen time once again for Colin. I imagine Halfords will be getting quite annoyed with me at this point, because we just aren't able to give him the screen time, because he's doing such a good job out in the lead. All the battling is going on elsewhere in the field, as we see huge tank slappers for both Will Harper and John Cole there. John Cole less so, able to catch right back up to Will Harper, as they are now near enough side by side, heading down the Pilgrim's Drop, as we see Colin Knief coming towards sector 3. John Cole gets the move done, round the outside for John Cole, heading into Hawthorne there. He just about edges out forward, but Will Harper very late on the brakes. That's cost him though. He's had to go onto the grass there for Will Harper, losing out on the position now a few tenths of a second separating the two cars there. He is lost out, trying to carry as much speed as humanly possible, really, as we can now go on board with Colin Knief as he heads round the Clark curve onto the Brabham Straight. And for the final time this evening, it is another domination by Colin Knief as he comes across the line to take the race 2 victory here at Brands Hatch. It is a Grand Slam once again for Colin Knief. Excellent racecraft demonstrated there. Kept himself calm and ended up taking the lead. Matt Daly as well comes home P2. Will Inglis coming home P3, and George Buckbatterby will be coming home P4 in just a moment's time there. But this battle is carrying on between John Cole and Will Harper now, as it looks like it's going to be John Cole's for the taking there. Will it be though? Will Harper looked like he was fighting back right at the end there. I imagine he wants the checkered flag to be just that little bit further down the Brabham Straight, and it could have been P5 for Will Harper, but he settles for P6 in the end. Barry Clayton coming home P7, Andrew Harvey P8, Alan Matthews battling out with Mike Hilton at this point in time. So that battle was going to happen. It just unfortunately came a little bit too late. I imagine they wanted a couple more laps to enjoy that battle, but it is going to be Alan Matthews coming home P9 and Mike Hilton P10 as well. John Baker leading that AM race then will be taking the lead, P11 on the road, but coming home in the lead for that AM race. So well done to John Baker for that. P2 goes to Guy Strawbrick and Jack Hodgson, Rosie Hodgson rather, taking P3 as well. Still heading down clearways for Rosie Hodgson. She's broken away from Steve Knight just a little bit, so she'll be fairly happy with this result, I am sure. As we head round the Clark curve with the final runners now, but it is Rosie Hodgson who will take that bottom spot on the podium in the AM running. Steve Knight coming home P4, and Andrew Whitehead coming home P15 as well. What a shame to see his race come undone so early on after what was a very impressive display in race 1. So it is Colin Knief who takes the lion's share of the points at Brands Hatch this weekend. In fact, takes the majority of the points at Brands Hatch this evening. Yes, a very impressive weekend once again for Colin Knief. And that rounds out the running for the 147 GTA. For now, we will join you once again in the historic 1750 GTA in a fortnight's time in the Touring Car Series. But that is it for now. Join us next week for the Formula Alpha Series as we go back to Jerez, which is something that I'm very much looking forward to. And I'm going to give my voice a bit of a break towards the end of this evening as well, because that has been race 1 in particular, one of the most exciting races I've seen in a long time. So that is it from me here at Brands Hatch. I hope to catch you next week. Thank you very much.